So in the exam you have to complete some how useful questions, and the question is always worth 5 marks, and it always begins with evaluate the usefulness of source B as evidence about a topic. So to get 5 marks you could talk about the type of source. So is it a textbook? Is it a newspaper? Is it a speech? Why is it a good film? Who wrote the source? Are they a historian? Are they an eyewitness to the event? Why is that good? When they wrote it. If it's primary source, 1929 is primary, during the time of the rise of the Nazi Party in Germany, and will give you accurate details. The source's content. Give an example of the source, what it tells you about the topic, and that's correct and matches what you know. And then add an example of knowledge that is not mentioned in the source. So in the how useful question, at the bottom of it in the exam, it will always give you suggestions about what to think about. The type of source, who wrote the source, when they wrote it, why they wrote it, and what they said, and what they missed out. So on the next slide, I'll take you through an example of how to do this actual primary source how useful question. So here's an example of an answer to this question. So the first one, the author, is the Nazi Party, but you always have to add, and this is useful because. So in the how useful question, you have to do that to get the marks, and this is useful because it provides a first-hand account of Nazi ideas and policies, because it's a Nazi Party. They understand their policies, what their aims are. That will get 1 mark. 1929 is a primary source, but if you just write that, you won't get the mark. You have to say, and this makes it useful because it's written at a time when the Nazi Party were growing, were producing manifestos, their policies, and this makes it useful. The type of source is a leaflet. So why is a leaflet useful? Because a leaflet is produced massively, is given all over Germany, and this makes it useful. So far I've just got 3 marks by using the top of the how useful question that tells you source C is a leaflet by the Nazis, and it gives you the date. You get 3 marks, but you have to do it like I've written here. You have to say quite clearly, and this makes it useful. That's why it's in bold. The next 2, I've added an extra example in. The source's content, what does it tell you about the topic? Does it match what you know? So you know that Weimar Germany had weak governments that collapsed. And this makes it useful because it's accurate, as many Germans hated weak government. That makes it accurate because it matches what you know. Also, the next one, the Communist Party were a threat to Weimar Germany. This is useful because the Nazis gained support because they promised to tackle the threat of the communists. The final bit, you can add an example. What does the source miss out about the rise of the Nazis? It doesn't talk about the fact that Hitler's speeches were very important. They were very, he was charismatic. He made promises, more jobs, reduced unemployment, and many Germans supported him. So, to summarise, in a how useful question in the exam, you can get 5 marks for talking about who wrote the source, why it's useful, the date of it, why it's useful, the type of source, why it's useful. You can add 1 example of the source's content. Does it match what you know? Is it accurate? And 1 example, what does the source miss out? So my suggestion is, to get 5 marks, try to do 3, like author, date, type. What does the source tell you? What it misses out. Okay. The next one I'm going to give you is an example of a secondary source. So in the exam, you will get a how useful question, possibly, that will be a secondary source. So a primary source is produced very close to the time of the event. So 1915 is during the time of World War I. 1999 obviously is well after the event, that's secondary. So remember, you get 3 marks by looking at the top above the question. Source A is a textbook written by a modern historian in 1999. So textbook is a type of source. Why is a textbook useful? A historian who wrote the source, why is that useful? And 1999 is a secondary source, using hindsight, look back, reflect on events, why is that useful? And the other marks is the source's content about the beer hall putsch. Does it match what you know? So you know, for example, that Hitler went into the beer hall, fired a gun in the air, and said, the revolution has begun. You know that's accurate, all right? And then the other mark is, what does the source miss out? It doesn't mention that Ludendorff, the old general, sent the politicians home like von Kahr, and then they phoned the army, and the next day Hitler marched in Munich and he got arrested. So next slide, I will take you through how to do this bad boy, all right? And I've given you 2 examples of how useful with a primary source and how useful with a secondary source, all right? Okay, so let's take it the same, what am I talking about? Let's calm down, Stuart. So let's do one at a time here. So who wrote the source? It's an historian. So an historian has a degree in history, they're well informed, they research the topic, they will give accurate facts, and this makes it useful. So imagine I wrote a book, or Mr. Shanks wrote a book about history. We are historians, and we've both got degrees in history, and we are reliable, we're experts on our topic, and this makes us useful. That would get a mark. The second one is the time of the source. So 1999, the year my son was born, is well after the time of the beer hall putsch. 1923 was the beer hall putsch. 1999 is secondary. So a secondary source can look back on the event, reflect on it, use hindsight. That means they can look back and add details or facts, and this makes it useful. The next one, type of source, is a textbook. So a textbook is produced again by experts, by maybe journalists, by publishers, by historians. It's been well researched in detail. Maybe it's got primary sources in it. It's got lots of facts because it's written to inform people about history, and this makes it useful. So far, you've got 3 marks for who wrote the source, an historian, why they're useful. It's a secondary source, looking back on events, why is that useful? And it's a textbook, why is that useful? The next one is the source's content about the beer hall putsch. Does it match what you know? So you know that after the putsch failed, there was a shooting in the street on Munich the day after the putsch, and many Nazis ran away and Hitler fell and was injured. This is accurate because you know Hitler did try to escape after the putsch. Also, outside the beer hall, there was shooting, there was a fight between different groups, and you know this is accurate because shots were fired during the putsch. But, it doesn't mention that Big Bad Ludendorff, the general from World War I, remember the video that I showed you? Hitler went away to deal with other business. Ludendorff said, oh yeah, just go home to like von Kahr, the famous politician. They went home, spoke to their wives, they phoned the army. The next day, Hitler and the Nazis went out in Munich, and because Ludendorff had let these people go, the army was waiting for them. Now, I have written too much here. So I've given you 6 here. So what I'm going to tell you now, right, you could, for example, do the author and do the date of the source. That would get 2 marks. You could give 2 examples of the source's content, what makes it accurate, and you give 1 example of what it misses out. Okay, so I've made videos for you on all the source questions. You've got comparison, how fully, how useful. You've just got to watch them. Watch them over the next 4 or 5 weeks before the exam. Watch them as well. But if you want any help, if you want to practice past papers, I can give you some. go to the website, Qualifications Scotland, National 5 History, past papers, find your topics, practice questions, type them up, and you can email them to me. Okay? Likewise, if you're in school and you've got an exam that's finished and you've got some free time till your bus takes you home, pop in and see myself or Mr. Shanks. We're here to help you. All right, take care.